ACRE used to be the gateway to the Holy Land in medieval times, and especially in the Crusader period. I'm now on a boat approaching ACRE, approaching it from the west, and we can actually see roughly what pilgrims in the medieval time would be seeing when they approach the city. Pilgrims came to ACRE from all over the Christian world. They came from Belgium, from Spain, from Portugal, from England, from Germany. And when they approached the city, they knew this is the beginning of their real journey to the Holy Land. They spent weeks, perhaps months along the way. But now the dream is fulfilled and they are entering the Holy Land. Approaching the walls of ACRE, the Crusader pilgrims would be passing this little island. This island is quite tiny actually, and it has ancient structure built on it. We believe it is from the Second Temple period, a pagan structure, but for the Crusaders it was very significant. They called it the Island of the Flies. Why the Island of the Flies? Well, the name of ACRE, given to it by the Crusaders, is ACRE. That's the Latin name of ACRE. And the Crusaders believed, because of that name, that ACRE is the biblical city of Ekron, the Philistine city. Obviously, they didn't know much about the geography of the Holy Land, so they were mistaken, but that's what they believed. And we do know from the Bible that one of the gods of the Philistines was Beelzebub. Beelzebub in Hebrew, it's a Hebrew term, is the Lord of the Flies. So this island, which was identified as a temple of the Philistines of Ekron, was given the name the Island of the Flies. Approaching the harbor, which is immediately behind us, that's the modern harbor, the yacht harbor of ACRE, but this is also the Crusader harbor of ACRE. The Crusader ships would have to go through a barrier, a huge chain stretching from one side to the other, stopping their way. Only the owner of the harbor would allow ships to go in or out. How? Using a pulley. They would lower down the barrier, lower down the chain, and bringing it up, they would stop the movement of ships. But who owned the harbor? Was it just the harbor of ACRE, or did it really belong to someone special? Well, the harbor of ACRE belonged to the king himself. The king is the ruler of the entire Crusader kingdom, but in practice, the high nobles own different parts of the country and different parts of the city. As you recall from the lectures in class, I already told you that there are here different military orders and tradesmen from all over the Christian world. So some of them owned different parts of ACRE. The king kept for himself the area of the palace and the area of the harbor. This is the entrance to ACRE, this is the entrance to the Crusader kingdom. He wouldn't let anyone else gain control over this harbor. So, welcome to ACRE. Welcome to the Crusader Templar Tunnel underneath the houses of modern ACRE. This tunnel was unknown for hundreds of years, but a couple of years ago, an ACREite family living up there had a problem. Their toilets were flooded. They had a problem there, so they obviously did what we would do in that case. They called in the plumber, and the plumber came in and started digging to see where the problem comes from. And lo and behold, underneath the floor, he found this magnificent passage, a tunnel going on an east-west direction. Immediately, the archaeologists were called in and they started digging and preparing the site for us to visit. What is the purpose of this tunnel? Well, the secret lies in its orientation and in what's underneath the floor we're walking on. Let's start with the floor. This wooden deck we're walking on is a modern deck. It didn't exist in the Crusader period. Instead, it was bare rock. And there are springs underneath. These springs fill the surface, the floor of the tunnel, with about 80 centimeters of water. Enough to put a barge on it and then put some merchandise, goods, and deliver them from one place to another without any special effort. But where did it start and to where did it go? Well, now we know that this tunnel began, it still begins actually, at the harbor of Acre. And it ends on the western side at the Crusader fortress of the Knight Templars. So it seems to be a private passage for the Templars only, from the harbor to the headquarters at the fortress, which we will see in a moment. When one goes inside the Templar tunnel, one ends up right here on the western side of Acre, facing the Mediterranean Sea, but also facing these ruins inside the water. These ruins are basically rock-cut structures. They're artificial. And they were cut here as the foundations of the Crusader fortress of the mighty order of the Knight Templars. That was their headquarters, right here. Now, the Templars were extremely important military-wise because they were the strongest military order in the Crusader kingdom. Their main aim was to defend the pilgrims to the Holy Land. But they were also very important from the economic perspective. And let me tell you why. Think about a pilgrim coming from Europe, let's say from Portugal, maybe from Spain. He's coming to the Holy Land, but unlike today, when travelers go for a week and see 2 or 3 countries, in the past things were quite different. A pilgrim would come to the Holy Land for months, maybe a year or 2. He would spend a lot of time here. And obviously, he needs to have some support. He needs to have money to buy stuff to eat, to accommodate himself in a hotel, to pay taxes if necessary, to travel from place to place. The problem is, one cannot take that kind of money from Europe to the Holy Land. There are dangers along the way. There are pirates along the way. So what do? Well, this is a problem, and every problem has a solution, and the solution was given by the Templar order. The Knight Templars established what we may call, in a sense, the first bank in Europe. And it worked the same way banks work today. A pilgrim, knowing that he is going to be in the Holy Land next year, would go to the local branch of the Templar Bank. He would give the Templars, let's say, 1,000 gold coins. And they would give him a certificate in return, saying that he indeed paid 1,000 gold coins, and once he gets to the Holy Land, he should get that amount. So he takes that piece of paper with him, easily concealed in his clothes, no real danger. And when he gets to Acre, right here, he would come from the harbor, first thing here, to the Knight Templar's office. He would show the receipt and get, instead of this receipt, 950 gold coins, not 1,000, because there's commission. So basically what we get here is the first banking system, international banking system in the world, and the Templars founded it. That made the Templars very, very rich. Actually, they became so rich that it was a great temptation to the kings of Europe. And so Immediately after the Crusader period ended in this country and the Templars returned to Europe, the King of France, Philip, decided to take over their possessions. So he blamed them for worshipping heads of asses, for instance, for being non-loyal Christians, and so on and so forth. And eventually he tried them, executed their leaders, and took over their possessions. That was the end of the Knight Templars in Europe. The Knight Templars may have been the strongest military order in the Crusader kingdom, but as you could see, only scant remains remain of their fortress, of their headquarters in the city of Acre. However, the second strongest one is, of course, the Hospitallers, or the St. John's Order, and this military order had its quarters also in Acre. We are now inside the dining room of the headquarters of this Crusader order. And as you can see, it is a magnificent structure preserved up to the top, to the roof. You can clearly see the arches, and look at the massive pillars behind me. If this is just a dining room, or a refectorium as they would say it in Latin, why do they need these massive pillars to hold the ceiling? Well, for many decades we didn't know the answer until the excavation here was expanded and the courtyard of this magnificent structure was found. Come with me and take a look at the courtyard. There lies the solution to our problem. The recent excavations at the fortress of the Hospitallers, or St. John's Order here in Acre, revealed this magnificent courtyard. From this, we have learned that the entire fortress was actually arranged around this courtyard. However, the most intriguing feature was what I'm standing on. As you can see, I'm walking down a staircase from the Crusader period. This staircase led up. Where? To the top of the dining room where we've been earlier. Basically, the dining room held, now we know that, 3 or 4 story high building, the headquarters of the Order of St. John. It was so heavy that they needed the support of the massive pillars we've seen earlier. So we've seen the dining room. The question is, where's the restrooms? We expect them to be found here. Let me take you there. One of the main aims of the Crusader Order of the Hospitallers, or the Order of St. John, was to take care of the poor, the needy, of pilgrims coming to the Holy Land. So you can imagine thousands of pilgrims coming every year, maybe tens of thousands of them, coming to this place to have some place to sit, to discuss things, to relax, to sleep at night, to be treated if they have any medical problem. And of course, they ate here, and eventually they came to this place to relieve themselves. What we see here is a unique example of a public Crusader latrine. Now, we have public latrines from the Roman period in this country and elsewhere, of course, but this is quite unique as it is 800 years old from the Crusader period. You can clearly see how it is arranged. It's a large room, and these are the toilet seats. Here's one of them in place. So you'd be sitting right here, your neighbor next to you, and on the other side, another guy would be sitting. And look over there, you can see another row of seats, and another one over there, and a fourth one over here. So this is a public place which is very unique to the Crusader period. We don't feel comfortable in such situations. We go home and we use our latrines or public latrines in public places, but these are separate cells. In this place, they were sitting one next to the other, opposite the other, discussing things perhaps, their experiences, their plans and whatever. And of course, the question is, where did it all go? Obviously, there must be somewhere underneath these seats, and indeed there's a huge cesspit that was excavated here. However, there's no flushing water system here. And the question is, how do you get rid of that during the year? I mean, there must be some huge amounts of human feces accumulating here. How do you get rid of that? Well, during the summer, they did not have any solution to that problem, as far as we know. So we think that what they did is that once or twice a day, perhaps, a local servant would come and spread some lime powder. That suppresses the smell. Yet it was extremely smelly. Actually, we have reports of pilgrims coming to Akko, complaining about the stench in the city. During the winter, things were a bit easier because there was a flushing system connected to the rainwater supply, and that actually washed out everything, well, at least in the winter. I'm now standing in one of these magnificent halls of the Crusader fortress of the Hospitallers, or the Knights of St. John from the 13th century. And this wall behind me is extremely interesting because it bears the marks of the tragedy and the end of the Crusader kingdom in the Holy Land. In 1291, the situation in the Crusader kingdom was horrible. It was almost destroyed by the Mamluk attacks. Caesarea was gone. Arsuf was gone, as many as other cities and Crusader principalities in the region. In 1291, April 1291, the final attack against the capital of the Crusaders was launched by the Muslims, and Akko was under siege until the 18th of May 1291, when the city walls were breached. The Muslims set fire to the city and its magnificent buildings began to crumble. The Crusaders left the city, and on this wall you can clearly see the burn marks of the fire that destroyed Crusader Akko. And here I am again on the boat in the harbor of Akko, but this time I'm leaving the city, the same way the Crusader took outside the city on May 1291. The Crusaders left from here and sailed to Cyprus. Later, some of them continued to Rhodes, Malta. Many of them went directly to Europe. This road is actually the end of Akko. It is the end of the Crusader kingdom, but there was one fortress remaining, as you recall from the lectures, and that was the fortress of Atlit. Atlit held for a couple more months until eventually its defenders, the Crusaders, realized no help is coming from Europe. So in the middle of the night, they went down to their boats and sailed away from Atlit. That was the real end of the Crusader era in the Holy Land.